Now, Shane Ross, he would have been fully aware that by supporting a grant allocation of $5 million for Waterford Airport, there was going to be some spin against him. The Irish Independent have gone for it full throttle this morning. Front page and 2 pages inside, giving out about money going to an airport with no flights. There are no commercial flights there at present, that is true. But there are flights, there's a lot of private flights. And the reason there's no commercial flights there at present, as a number of texters have said already, is because the runway is too short. And the reason the money is going in there is to lengthen and widen the runway. And there won't be any commercial flights unless the government and the private sector gets involved. Now, Shane Ross has already been on News Talk this morning talking about the funding which represent a 40% investment, with the remaining funding being provided by private investors and local authorities.
We looked at this very, very closely, and I decided at the end that there are risks involved in this, but the fact of the matter is that the government's only putting in 40%, and private investors and local authorities are putting in, absolutely convinced, putting their money on the line. And if I was to refuse that, I'd obviously be really, really sounding the death knell of Waterford Airport. It's very important for regional policy. Waterford Airport is reopened, but we think it's got a really good chance of success.
Now, Mary Butler has also been on the airwaves defending the idea because, from what I understand, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin were spoken to before this grant allocation was going to be put through Cabinet, because they wanted everybody on side, because there would have been a potential that people would start giving out about it. This is what Mary Butler has had to say this morning.
However, support is conditional from the government, subject to a number of conditions, including a demonstration that the project can be delivered for $12 million and will not go over budget. Minister, yesterday we heard in detail at the Oireachtas Committee for Health that the cost overrun at the National Children's Hospital was due to inflation costs. So why, for example, is cost inflation OK at the Children's Hospital, but for the Waterford Airport, which applied for the funding 12 months ago, the terms and conditions are different? In every project there is a possibility of a cost overrun. This seems to me a very strange situation.
And that was Mary Butler speaking in the Dáil last night. We have another clip of her coming up shortly and later on in the programme regarding what she said this morning, because this issue hasn't gone away. The Independent are making a big play about this morning. Now, for the first time ever, Conor McCarthy has been speaking about putting his hard-earned money into the airport. You'll hear from this, Conor McCarthy. He's one of the investors behind the small number of people, 3 or 4 investors that are going to put up to €5 million into the airport. He's living in Dublin. I spoke to him a short while ago.
Yeah, good morning, Damien.
Conor, just in case any of our listeners don't know who you are, obviously a very successful businessman and in-depth knowledge of the aviation industry. What are you bringing to the table in this scenario?
Well, I guess what I bring along with the other investors is a passion for the South East and a passion to see what's a very potentially viable piece of infrastructure, which is the current airport, develop to its proper potential, and therefore enables it to bring tourists to the region, directly into the region of Waterford, Kilkenny, and also Carlow and Wexford, and also to enable people who live in the area to have a much easier access, particularly to the UK.
Tell me about your experience, Conor, please.
Well, I guess I'm a lifelong aviator, I suppose you could call me. I started in aviation at 16. I've been in the business now for over 41 years, and I've worked across the world and still do with a range of airlines. I spent a long time at Aer Lingus and finished up there as chief executive of Aer Lingus Commuter, and then moved to Ryanair for a number of years as their chief operations officer. And for the last 20 years now, I've been kind of plying my wares across the world, helping people start airlines. So I was involved. I'm a founder of AirAsia in Southeast Asia, and a founder of AirAsia X, founder of Jetstar in Australia, and also an airline in Mexico known as Viva Aerobus. So I'm still involved with most of those airlines as well today.
And you live in Dublin, but you have a summer house in Dunmore, is that it?
Yes, we've Dunmore is our second home, really, and we love the place. And over the last 25 years, I guess we've got to know Waterford and the whole region much better. And I can see, as somebody who visits the region, how much it has to offer and how much potential there is there. And it's been a source of frustration for me to see the airport, which has badly needed a jet-capable runway for a long time, being left without it. So it's great news this week that we've got the government on side, and we can press ahead with a relatively ambitious plan to develop that runway and to develop the necessary associated works. And
you sound like
that runway.
You sound like the type of man, Conor, that wouldn't be putting money into a white elephant or a sort of a dreamy boat type of project. I'd say you're a fairly practical man, and that any investment that you'd make in this particular project would be done so in the full knowledge that it is a very viable product.
Well, I suppose I do remember my first week's wages were £18 when I was an apprentice in Aer Lingus, so I certainly know the value of a few quid, but I've made some mistakes and you make some judgments, but I think this is a risk worth taking. Yes, I do believe there is a significant opportunity for the region in this, and I wouldn't be backing it if I didn't think there was going to be a success in the long run.
And is it impolite to ask how much money yourself and the likes of Noel Frisbee or others will be putting in?
No, not impolite at all. I won't be telling you, but there you go. We're going to between ourselves and the private investors, we're going to put in $5 million. The councils who have been extremely supportive. This project has been live really for over 18 months. We've been trying to put a business plan together. We've been trying to get government support for a long time on this, and so it's been a challenge to get the support necessary and to get people on the belief boat. And we're all there.
Yeah, and what will you get back for this? Do you get a stake in the airport? Is there a percentage? Do you become part owners, or what happens?
Yes, we'll take an equity stake in the airport. I mean, as things stand, I think the minister himself even said it, the airport was, unviable as it stood, and its future. Actually, I would have thought its future was almost doomed if it didn't have this additional investment. At least now, with the investment, the airport can attract efficient, modern jets such as the Airbus 320 and the Boeing 737, and that means that the airline that operates in and out of Waterford from London, for example, can offer competitive fares. It means that the people living in the region can now take a very nice, predictable, short drive to their local airport and take a flight at a very attractive fares compared to the alternatives in Dublin, for example, where the road system is congested and where the airport is congested and where the fares have been steadily rising over the last 10 years.
What do you think of front page of the Irish Independent this morning, where the Minister, John Halligan, and Shane Ross are in for criticism, for a sort of a kickback against this idea of giving €5 million in a grant to an airport with no flights? There seems to be some political manoeuvres, whether it's a Dublin-centred thing, whether it's a political attack on Shane Ross and John Halligan, but there's obviously some people stirring it up, saying that this money shouldn't be given to Waterford.
You see, I'm pretty much a private sector person myself, and I certainly don't subscribe to the idea that people should get handouts. And so in that regard, I find that a bit surprising. Here we have private sector stepping up saying, we'll fund pretty much 50% of this project if you guys fund the other 50%. On top of that, the airport, which is currently being subvented each year in order that it can provide the search and rescue service that's essential to the southeast, is going to continue in some form. So why not spend a little bit of tar that's going to make this ship float, rather than not spend a heap worth of tar, as they say? I think you'll always find some detractors, but this is a risk. It's not guaranteed by any means. We don't have, for example, an airline yet signed up to it, but we have a plan and a strategy to attract some airlines that could come in. We're going to have discounts available for the first movers on any one route. So those airlines will get marketing support, which is essentially will enable them to develop the route themselves, and it'll give them some time to do that without having too much competition on the route that could kill all players. And in that regard, I think it's very positive. As far as the economics for the taxpayer are concerned, there's a study that was done a number of years ago, and the study identified that with one daily flight to London, that the region and the government, the Exchequer, would benefit to the tune of over 33 million euros a year. So when you think about a 5 million investment being paid back in less than 3 months of service, that's a pretty good investment for the taxpayer, I would have thought, as opposed to the same people who might be neighbours of mine here in Dublin. I don't know. But they haven't said a word about the fact that the DAA are about to spend 2 billion, not 2 million now, 2 billion euros developing Dublin Airport's third runway and associated facilities.
What's the time frame? Obviously, we have planning permission is going to be put in for the second end of the runway, and are we looking? What would you expect the time frame to be, Conor?
Our objective is to try and have this runway ready for operations next summer. I mean, there's no way that you'd be hoping an airline would start it in the winter, which is a traditional loss-making period for airlines. So we would have an objective and an ambition to have that runway available for operations next summer 2020. That depends on a lot of things, of course. It depends on the planning permission. It depends on the construction program moving ahead within it. And it also is clearly important that we manage to achieve that within the budget of 12 million.
And it's definitely going to happen, is it?
You heard it. That's going to happen.
Conor McCarthy, thank you very much for joining us. That was Conor McCarthy, aviation expert and a man who is one of the people that's going to put in money into the airport. People texting in, well done Mary Butler out early this morning, telling it as it is, Dublin-centric media on the attack. Great news for Waterford, another texter. Well done Mary Butler for continuing raising this. Unbelievable, fantastic news for Waterford. Dublin didn't want to give us the money, but Halligan has obviously fought hard to get this over the line. Why are people still trying to knock him? Great to see all the Oireachtas members pulling together, says another person. Damien, the Irish Examiner editorially in yesterday's paper, made very good reading. From a regional point of view, today's Independent is typical of a Dublin-based newspaper not knowing the struggle that doesn't know exactly what the needs of the South East are. Nuala's texted, why should taxpayers be involved in a private enterprise that is Waterford Airport? We need 24/7 cardiac care. Owen Davin has said, congrats to all the Waterford blood donors today on World Blood Donor Day. And a special note here, a personal note. Please say congratulations to Tasman O'Shea, who just got her results from IT Carlow, a 1-1 first class honours from her mum and dad, brother and sister. Well done, Tasman. Back with more of your texts and comments. 083 3333 975. That's 083 3333 975. Texter has just texted in. Hi Damien, just wondering, can the public get involved in the airport, getting shares or putting money in? I'm not sure about that. I don't think so at present. I'm not sure about that. Regarding prostate cancer, Damien, men are wimps when it comes to examining the prostate. Easy known, they've never had babies, where women's bodies are pocked and prodded at every angle, and that is in for Mary. Call Audrey on 051 846 123. Back with a very, very important topic.